one of the things about being in a double act is you do spend a lot of time in a van together or hanging out in a theatre somewhere, and you explore every crevice of every conversation related to magic or each other's own personal interests. So I'm ashamed I reckon I've got about five for him, but I'm surprised that he's only got three for me.
The first thing that Young said on his list of things that he thought you would say was card manipulation.
You're
So
joking.
that is 2-0 to Richard Young.
Just making him look good. It makes it look like he listens to me, and I just don't. I mean, to be honest, whenever he speaks, it's mostly white noise. But so maybe I just need to show more of an interest in him. Maybe what's his name again? Young, Richard Young. Is it, or is it Rich?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. I am very, very excited today because if you knew the concept from last week's episode, spoiler alert, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, listen to that first because we have a wonderful magic duo. Now, these two chaps have been performing together for, I think when we just spoke about 15 years, I certainly saw them many years ago, and like I mentioned in that previous episode, I'm not going to go through it again. One of my magical moments of the things that I experienced was from these two, from seeing them in a very small church hall in London and being absolutely blown away by one of them disappearing and transporting somewhere else. It felt unfathomable and it felt absolutely magical. Now, what I love about this is that both of them haven't conferred. So Young hasn't spoken to Strange, Strange hasn't spoken to Young. So we're going to see, number one, if there's any overlap, and B, if they each get each other's guesses right. Because last week, Richard Young guessed what Sam Strange is going to put. And we all know what his last item was. So I wonder if Strange is going to accidentally get his own back without realising. We're going to find out. Anyway, today's performer in his own right is absolutely phenomenal. He is the other half of Young and Strange. What I really love about both of them as well is they tend to not take themselves too seriously, which I love. And that really comes across in their performances. They're not afraid to take light of themselves and just be fun and engaging. So I know that if you've not heard of them before, my goodness, please go to YouTube. Obviously, listen to this first, and then go to YouTube, watch some of their videos. They're very, very funny. Check out their Fool Us performances. I know that Richard Young last week gave us a little teaser that they are returning back to Fool Us, which is going to be very exciting. I'm sure that's going to be phenomenal as always. They are all over TV. They've done loads of stuff on TV. They're very well known around the magic industry. Definitely check out their podcast, which is the Magician's Podcast, which is Richard Young, who we had on last week. But I'm babbling on now. But you're going to love it. I'm so excited to see what they're going to say. I do have Richard's list here from last week, so we can see if Richard was correct about Sam Strange's choices. So with that being said, we have the absolutely wonderful Mr. Sam Strange. Hello, Sam.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Very
It's brilliant
excited.
to hear. Really appreciate it. This is my favourite magic podcast, actually, out of all the ones that's out there.
Well,
And no, Young's podcast, he does it on his own, actually. I don't have much of an involvement with it. Occasionally I'll step into Hudson's shoes when he's ill or something, but it's very much Young's project, and it's good to listen to, isn't it? He's one of the few, and you alluded to it before we started recording, is that he's one of the few people who asks the question to the guests and then shuts up. It's brilliant.
yeah. He's wonderful, and that podcast, I would say, is probably the most sought after one. It's the one that I think most magicians have listened to, most performers, and I dare say that there probably are comedians and crossover artists that listen to those podcasts as well, because they're just phenomenal. They're a great they're a great library of interviews of some of the biggest names in the industry. Really, he does a great job with it.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't spoken to him for years, so I just hear his dulcet tones through the podcast. So give him my best when you speak to him, won't you?
Well, he left us a very last final item, which you're going to have to listen back to hear that. So he wasn't too mean, but he was mean enough. He was mean enough. We'll put it that way.
Look forward to it.
So let's begin by talking about the choices that you think Young put down. Now, obviously, we've had his, so I can tell you if you were right. We can have the first big reveal here.
And he did all 8, did he?
He did 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 item, but for you, he only guessed 3 things.
Okay. You know what? He knows me well, so he will guess what I'm sure. One of the things about being in a double act is you do spend a lot of time in a van together or hanging out in a theatre somewhere, and you explore every crevice of every conversation related to magic or each other's own personal interests. So I'm ashamed I reckon I've got about 5 for him, but I'm surprised that he's only got 3 for me. But anyway, so do you want me to tell you what I think I've got for him?
Yeah, go for it. We'll play Richard Young bingo, and we'll see how many you hit.
This is going to be easy. So he's going to have a couple of stage illusions in there because he loves stage illusions. One of which will be the first illusion he ever bought, which is origami. Is there like a ding or something when I get it right, or?
I'll let you list your list, and then I'll divulge after that.
Because I've got a story about his origami. Did he tell you the story about his origami that he bought?
No.
I mean, sorry, origami, I don't know whether you've touched on this in Young's episode, but origami is a stage illusion where you traditionally put a glamorous assistant inside of a box. You then shrink that box up to the size of a small cube, and then you take the sword that's hanging off the back of the mirror, and then you stab that through the small cube. It's a really impossible, deceptive illusion to the point where you go, I do not know where she's gone, completely vanished. So there was Young's first ever stage illusion that he bought. Maybe actually second. I think maybe he had a cube zag before that. And he lived with his parents at the time and had no place to store it, like nowhere. It's and he bought it and then ended up, and obviously he had nowhere to perform it because he's only like 17 or 18 or something at the time. So he bought it just, all credit to him. He bought it out of just passion, but without really thinking it through. And he bought it off Scott Penrose, I think. And he then had to store it in his bedroom under his bed. So he had to put his bed on top of the origami where it would remain as the storage place. I mean, presumably for months, because the first theatre show he did was, I think, with me. So that was 2010. So, I mean, it must have been in his bedroom for years. Anyway, origami, tick. One for me.
Well, I will tell you now. Origami was not on his list.
Oh, mate, that was my opening bid.
That is not on his list. No, it wasn't even an honourable mention.
I don't know the guy at all. It's just a facade.
Well, you said you've done 5, so you got 4 more guesses.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to go with trisection, which is again you're looking at your paper there, like it's not on the list. Right. Trisection is an illusion where you put your arm through this sort of box, and the box splits in the middle, so you can lift the central section up, and the arm is sort of trisected into 3. But there's a beautiful reveal to it that when you then open the base, you can clearly see all around the arm, and it's a really deceptive illusion. And you're like, what am I looking at? That's incredibly deceptive. Hans Klock's done some nice additions to it, and it's a really deceptive visual optical illusion is what it is. And he again bought that when he was young and had a love for it, and I think he still got it in the garage. Actually, we used it for a couple of PR bits because it's quite a practical illusion that you can do and does look good if you get the angle right. So is that on the list?
Trisection is not on the list either, I'm afraid. Also not as an honourable mention.
What I'm learning from this is that I need to shack up with either Morgan or West, who I've heard have gone their separate ways. I think I'd probably get on better with them. Anyway, right, okay, we're going to go with this is okay. If oh my god, if origami and trisect, okay, a tenyo trick. That's an umbrella one. Some sort of plastic tenyo, crystal cleaver. What's what? Yeah, Mr. Danger, something like that. I think he probably had a love for Mr. Danger. Do you know Mr. Danger, the Tenyo trick, where it's this outline of a man, then you put the stakes through, and you came up with this nice idea. One of the illusions that Young and I do, and love doing is the cardboard box illusion, where you put I put Young into a box, and then I put loads of stakes through. It's the victory carton illusion. And what we thought actually when doing a full show is that Mr. Danger might be a good prelude to that, because you can talk about the first ever trick that I got when I was a kid, and then it inspired this next illusion. So Young had a great passion for this Mr. Danger illusion, and I think that passion was killed pretty much dead when we performed Mr. Danger in a place in Texas called Arlington, and it got nothing. It got nothing. They hated it. I mean, it's a great little puzzle, isn't it? But on a camera in a big theatre, it was just not. It was not good. So I don't know. So I'd imagine that's not on the list, but I'd imagine something like Crystal Cleaver is.
I wonder if someone in the world is going to create a human-sized version of that. Surely someone's going to one day.
Well, there's that light bulb thing, isn't it? That's again a stage illusion. I forget the name of it. Is that you stand in this cabinet and then these light bulbs are pushed through you, like sort of strip lighting, you know? And then the illusion's opened halfway through to see the strip lights sort of partially going through you, and it's a really good visual illusion. So that's kind of, I guess, the closest thing. But no, Mr. Danger it's a good puzzle. I enjoyed it, but the Arlington audience didn't.
Well, let's start with this specific version there. So Mr. Danger was not on his list. But let's talk about a Tenyo trick. So you said a Tenyo trick at large is not on the list. There are no Tenyo tricks on that list either.
I think he's done this game because he knows I'm about to play it, and therefore he's chosen all sorts of abstract things like dynamic coins or whatever. Just some things he knows I won't say. Right, I'm gonna have another go. He loves Copperfield, obviously, and as we can all agree, one of the greatest pieces of magic ever is the flying routine by Copperfield, and the method in that looks like a lot of fun. So I would guess Copperfield's flying. I mean, let's stick the owl in there as well, or the bird of prey. Sorry, let's get that in. That's what I think. Some sort of contraption, avoiding methods for flying.
So, I will say, he did go for a Copperfield trick. There is a Copperfield trick in there.
Car. It's the car.
However, it was the portal vanish. He went for. But then we get on to number 8 of his list, and he mentioned some sort of rig that would be used for a flying effect.
So maybe a flying rig. That's interesting.
So, absolutely spot on with that one. Yeah, so in one of his lists, he spoke about having some sort of rig for flying. He didn't mention any specifics, but he did allude to the Copperfield one. So I'll give you that 100%.
Yeah, but I'm not happy to say that really, because I've had 4 other guesses prior to that. So it doesn't. I mean, there's no joy in me getting that right after attempt 5, is there?
Well, he may also not have got any of yours right. Remember?
Right, that. Leviosa. There's another one. Leviosa. All he does is he just goes around whenever we're hanging out. He'll just do Leviosa, and he does this stupid little when he does it. So is that in there? No.
Is that going to be your last guess?
Yeah.
That was his 3rd trick.
Was it?
It was Leviosa. So you got 2 out of 5 there. That's not bad. You could still beat. He's only done 3 for you, so you could still beat him overall.
Okay. And if when I come to do my ones, if I'm suddenly hit by a bolt of lightning that makes me reflect on some passion of his in magic, I might throw out another couple of options for him.
But what I love about your list, though, is it just shows how much you both know each other, because all of the choices that you said there were about the first tricks that he had and the fact that he used to have one to put his bed on and store it that way. So it just shows how far your history goes back, and the choices that you made, those informed choices, are based on the idea.
It's also an interesting format for the podcast, isn't it? And I've listened to some other episodes of the podcast, and I bet actually trying to untangle the nostalgia from it all is a difficult thing to do, because a lot of people are choosing tricks presumably because they have that childlike wonder when they bought it when they were 12, and it's probably not a very good trick, but I was listening to Liam Mortimer. Actually, Liam Mortimer was talking about dynamic coins, incidentally, and you go, yeah, I mean, it's not an absolute baffling trick, but because he got it, because it was one of his first tricks, he can't untangle that emotion.
Yeah, I think that's what's been interesting about it, and I alluded to this in another episode with someone else, is that when we started the podcast, we didn't really think that there were so many avenues for people to go down. So some people have done, like Liam, he almost did a journey through his career. So these were the ones that I started at the very beginning that I loved all the way through. You've had some people think about it from a point of view that they don't have enough time to do these tricks. So if they had infinite time, these are the tricks that they would then do. So yeah, I think loads of people have come up from a different point of view and a different perspective. Darren's obviously was his ultimate trick. So if he was almost doing a show for the rest of his life, what are those 8 tricks, those 8 things that he would take out of his previous works to perform for forever? So I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think it's really interesting all the way through, everyone's different versions of it.
Can I have another go at one of Young's guesses? Because this is a cheap joke, right? If he's gone for this, he's terrible, because this is cheap, because I considered it and I did not put it on my list. But we are the proud owners of, and probably one of the only people in the world who own this illusion, an appearing sailboat, right? What it is a appearing sailboat. It's like 14 foot high, and I appear on it wearing a life jacket and a captain's hat, and there's a comedy routine that comes with it, right? But no other sort of illusionist is going to make an appearing little sailboat appear, because it's kind of quite trivial and quaint in terms of its appearance. But if he's gone with that because he thinks it's a funny idea on a desert island to have a sailboat and therefore sail into the distance, it's too obvious a joke. Has he done that?
He hasn't. You are safe. He hasn't stooped to those levels.
Not in my estimations.
But we do need to find out about your list. So,
yeah, go on.
If you've not heard this podcast before, if this is your first time, number one, really do go listen to Young's one first, because they are young and strange in that order. So do go check that out first. But if you've never heard this before, the idea is that we are about to maroon Sam on his own desert island. When he's there, he's allowed to take 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item that he uses for magic. Particulars: who's there, how many people are there, how big the island is, are there an audience, are there not, all of that sort of stuff we do not mind. That's in Sam's own imagination. The idea is that if he could only perform these tricks for the rest of his days, this is what he would do. So with that being said, let's see if Young had it right. What did you put in your first position?
You know what? I've got the 8. I'm not prissy about which position they're coming in, because I love them all. But one of my favourite illusion of all time, and it's a stage illusion, which is an illusion called Osmosis. It's created by Jim Steinmeier, and it's basically this huge cabinet, vast thing, with a central pole in the middle. In fact, most magicians will remember it because it was the method that Lance Burton used to vanish on stage before he appeared on the chandelier. Do you remember that famous line? "Look, I'm up here on the chandelier," and then he'd descend. But you go in his live show, or certainly for the television clips I've seen, he would vanish in an osmosis illusion, and it's absolutely brilliant. Rick Thomas does it. Hans Klock does it. James Moore had a version of it. It's just beautiful. it's you just vanish into this pole. And I don't know whether partly the reason I love it is because I know the method, and the method is fantastically brilliant and exciting and slightly Victorian in its creation. I think any stage illusion that uses, mirrors, wires, or something like that, or is really intriguing. I just fell in love with the moment I saw it, and I was lucky enough to sort of spend a bit of time with one in LA. A friend of ours owns one, so we had a good old play about with it. And so Osmosis by Jim Steinmeier is coming on the shipping cost is going to be a fortune, by the way, because it's a big prop. And if there's anything we're qualified to talk about, it's the cost of shipping props around the world. We had to do it actually for some shows in London. We had to ship our illusions over from America, where they're stored, to do some shows in London. And just the shipping cost alone, I mean, it was like it's coming on like 18, 20 grand to ship just a container across and then back again. And air freighting is like 4 or 5 times the cost. So you might, I don't know what the rules are, but just bear in mind that that's going to cost a lot of money to get that on the desert island.
Well, it's your island. It's your dream island, so there are no shipping costs. How about that? Or maybe it will appear on that sailboat. Maybe it will just appear on the island.
I can tell you something. That sailboat is not at all seaworthy. If you put that anywhere near water, it would sink like a submarine.
Well, I think that's a great choice. And let's play Sam Strange Bingo with Richard Young. Now, he has been very general with his suggestions, and he said that you will have a few grand illusions in there. So, right. If we're going by that and Osmosis, he would already have one correct on his list.
It's easy guess, isn't it? Easy.
But great. So it's interesting to see. I mean, that's quite a big illusion straight away. So it's going to be interesting to see if you go smaller or. I feel like we should play your cards right. Is it going to be bigger or smaller for your second one?
It's going to be a lot smaller.
A lot smaller. Okay.
We're going to so option number 2. We're going to go to the deck of playing cards, but specifically red-backed B playing cards. Okay, and that's because one of my things I genuinely love, and I do a bit of it, but it's nothing to be proud of. The stuff that I do is card manipulation, right? It was one of the first things I learned when I was like 16, 17. And what's great about learning card manipulation, if you've never done it, is it's instant gratification when you're standing in front of a mirror, because what you're seeing is the optical illusion as you're doing it. You don't need an audience at that point to do it to get that. Oh my God, that looks amazing. Do you know what I mean? And And of course, it's so varied, and there's so many different ways of producing playing cards and showing your hand empty and then peeling off more. It's just there's so many different techniques and so much technical exploration that you can do with card manipulation. That actually that would be a really nice therapeutic thing to take onto a deck to a desert island. The other thing I do love, which isn't magic, is cardistry. Not many. I think a lot of magicians have a little bit of. I don't think they're into the cardistry. A lot of magicians, they find it too flashy or don't get it. But just when I first saw Dan and Dave Buck, do you remember the Buck twins in the? Sorry, they're still alive. But do you remember the Buck twins? I watched them on a DVD called Road Killers, and they only had a bit at the very end. In fact, it might have even been a VHS where they were doing card flourishes to the camera, and I was blown away by how beautiful it looked. And they were breaking new ground at the time. I mean, cardistry now is a huge thing, and there's conventions, aren't there? And you can't move for online content containing people doing brilliant edits and UV cards and all the stuff. But when I first came across it, when it was kind of in its infancy, I was really fascinated by it. So I do a few card flourishes. Again, nothing brilliant. But I like doing them in the same way that I guess I don't know, a pianist would love the sitting down and playing the piano. I like the therapeutic aspect of it.
So 2 questions. Number 1, why bees? I think I know why, but I don't know a huge amount about card manipulation. And number two, if someone's listening and they're interested, I know we've had card manipulation on the podcast before, and I know Jeff McBride was cited as a good resource to learn from. Where would you recommend people start learning about it?
Well, I mean, you know what? That series, The Art of Card Manipulation by Jeff McBride, it was spread over 3 DVDs, which I think you can still get actually. I think the third DVD, supposedly it would progress in difficulty, and the third and final DVD, the half of that is devoted to like the history of playing cards and things. So actually, just the first two DVDs were brilliant, and if you can get past the sort of presentation of it, then the actual mechanics of what Jeff McBride is doing is just so good to watch. It's so exciting to watch someone and go, how I cannot believe it. And then he very clearly shows you from a multi-camera setup of how to do it. And I love that. So that's a really good resource. Although obviously there's now a huge wave in the last sort of 10 years or so of these Korean manipulators coming out. And so you've got the likes of An Halim and Yoho Jin and is 1%. He's got a DVD called 1%. I think Anna Lim's DVD is called Monster. If you look at, there's another manipulator called Anson Lee. What's his actual name? Lee Ann Hansen, but Anson Lee is his Western name, and he's got another DVD out, and they're just, some of them are knuckle busting, but those Jeff McBride moves are pretty manageable in terms of picking up something visual that looks good, like the Cardini single production. If you can back palm, 20 cards or so, which is very doable, then you can just produce 20 cards at your fingertips and will get a great response. But so why bees? I mean, the reason that Jeff McBride uses bees actually is that the red and white backing is probably the most flesh coloured of the conventional playing cards. So if you can keep your hand moving when you're doing it, then it's a bit more forgiving. I mean, there's a whole again world of manipulation cards now, which can be black-hearted or can be flesh coloured, or critically can be really thin, so that when you're back palming 20 Bs, for example, you can now back palm 60. But the problem with manipulation cards is that because they're thin, it does mean that just manipulating them for some of the other moves is more challenging. Imagine if you've got to display a packet of cards or a single card between your fingers with a very squidgy, thin card. It's almost, I find it incredibly frustrating to do that. But with a B card, you get a really good rigidity, and I think actually some of the top manipulators will have different playing cards for different moves. If you're gonna have an have you seen An Halim's act? It's just relentless. It's he's a Korean manipulator. He was the first person to come up with the coloured cards concept. So he'd be doing productions, and then it'd be coloured cards. And what I love about his act is it's quite simplistic. It's literally, I'm going to produce a load of playing cards in the next 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and it's going to be a relentless onslaught of it. And it doesn't seem to have like a poetic narrative like Yoho Jin's with the scarf and it coming full circle. It's literally like it's like a machine gun of playing cards. But I think he's at different parts of that. He's using different types of playing cards for different moves.
I think there's a real elegance in it as well. Even when you look back at older performances like Lance Burton and and Jeff McBride, when you look at some of those old performances, there's just a sophistication and an elegance in what they're doing. It must be, like I said, I've never really done a lot of it. It must be such a therapeutic, like you said earlier, really therapeutic and just enjoyable going over those motions and practicing.
Yes, it really is. I mean, obviously we've all played about with knuckle busting moves, and there's periods in that process where it's just agonizingly painful and you just go, what is the point? But once you start to get it and you can start to do it with some level of consistency, then it becomes really pleasurable, and you can wander around doing cuts or flourishes in your hand, and then it becomes an enjoyable thing, as opposed to, why doesn't that move when I do that thing with my finger? It's so frustrating.
Well, let's go back to Sam Strange Bingo for a second.
Go on.
The first thing that Young said on his list of things that he thought you would say was card manipulation.
You're
So
joking.
that is 2-0 to Richard Young.
Just making him look good. It makes it look like he listens to me, and I just don't. I mean, to be honest, whenever he speaks, it's mostly white noise. But so maybe I just need to show more of an interest in him. Maybe what's his name again? Young, Richard Young. Is it, or is it Rich?
So he's got one more to
Oh, yeah,
get
he
it.
also I know what he's going to go with because I'm sort of mocked for this passion of mine, which is on my list. It's not number 3, but it's on my list. So let's jump to it. And I love an impossible location, right? So an object to impossible location, and he always rips it out of me, going. You've only got. But my close-up act is basically object to impossible location performed multiple times. There's no interesting, creative arc or varied effects. It's just literally like, how the hell does that object get in there? And I've always loved that. I think that passion has been instilled in me ever since I saw my first ever close-up magician. I was 16 years old, maybe actually 15 years old, and I went to a party, and Paul Megram, Colonel Custard, lives in Aylesbury. Paul, and he was booked as a close-up magician, and he did a card to impossible location, and it was just I just could not get my head around it how the box could be set on the other side of the room, and that sign playing card be in there before the card was ever signed. And I think what happened is at that point, I fell in love with the concept. I mean, even in our stage act, we do watch in tin, which is watch to a nest of boxes inside a tin, and so it does seep into every part of my close-up magic and probably some of the stage stuff. I bet that's on the list, isn't it? I bet he's got that.
Well, before we find out if it is on the list, let me ask you, I'm going to be devil's advocate here.
Please do.
So, if you had to only do one object to impossible location, and you couldn't do any others, which one would you do?
Right. So I've gone through a lot of iterations of impossible locations, and you cannot move in the magic market for boxes with playing cards. I made a little list: Kennedy box 2, Clarity box, if you remember that, David Penn's Mystery Solved, Destination box, Danny Garcia's Mint box, and that's just the boxes, and that's just a handful. You go once you start then going, well, if you're categorizing a card to impossible location as appearing inside a sealed envelope or a Bob Kohler black envelope or a card in shoe, you could probably sit here all evening just listing cards to impossible location. So, but having said that, I've played about with most of them, and I think my favorite is Destination box, and I can go into why if Ed, you're at all interested in that. I mean, I'm not some great magical mind that's mused on this. The thing about lots of other paperclipped by Jay Sankey or whatever, is that if that card is in full view the entire time, to me, it's a bit too good. It's a bit too good. Whereas Destination box is a step back from that. If a Destination box is John Allen's box, by the way, it's like a small wooden box with a lock on it. You open it inside. Inside of that is an old pill pot, like a metallic pot, and then a secondary object. And what happens is the secondary object helps facilitate the trick, right? So the secondary object can be anything. And what's good about that is that because it's hidden in a locked box out of sight, it's a little bit more believable it could have been in there the entire time than with something like the Clarity box, where the card is visible all the time. And you must know and also with the Destination box is that really there is a moment of you handling the box, but the final beat of the spectator opening that pill pot is handled by them. So there's another level of greatness there, and probably in the sands of time they would probably forget you ever handled the box. So Destination box by John Allen I think is excellent.
Great choice. It's one that we've had a few times on the pod, I think.
Is it?
And with good reason. It's a beautifully made prop. And like you just said, that moment of being able to tip it out and hand it to them, I feel like there's more likelihood of them misremembering the ending and recalling it as them holding on to it for the whole time, and then suddenly it was inside the box in their hand.
Yeah.
So I think it's structured well. But in terms of Sam Strange bingo, I'm afraid he's just got a full house. He did say object to impossible location, and I can't recall if he said destination box, but I think he may have said that as well.
Yeah. I don't want to play anymore. We'll do a different one. Bingo.
So yeah, we have got a full house. We have got card manipulation, a grand illusion, and an object to impossible location.
Can I ask then, is it all his stuff close-up stuff then? Because I mentioned, obviously he likes Copperfield's flying, right? And he wants to fly around his desert island, lording above everybody else. How many other stage illusions has he got in there?
So he's got 1, 2, 3 stage illusions, one of which he hasn't performed.
He's not going to say the Blaney ladder levitation. If he does that, he's got a Blaney ladder levitation, which is the 2 step ladders and the thing. He's not going to say that.
Nope.
Hang on. Is he going to say his Paul Daniels thing that he bought from Thomas More? The what's the name of it? How should I not know the name of it? The thing. I bet he is. I bet he's going to say that because there's an interesting story that goes with that. He in his garage clogging up. I think it's called Geometrics. Is an illusion which is was on the Paul Daniels Magic Show many moons ago, and Thomas More has sort of recreated it, and he's got one of those in his garage. Is that on the list?
I will say on your desert island there is a spade, and that spade you are digging a hole, and it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. No, that is also not on his list.
I don't know the guy. I don't know the guy at all.
But anyway, let's talk about your list for a second.
Yeah, all right.
So
okay,
Osmosis, cards for card manipulation.
Yes.
And your card to impossible location. Great. All really good choices. Really interesting choices as well. And it does bring us to your 4th item. So what did you put in your 4th spot?
Okay, well, this ties in perfectly to... So
Hello guys, I'm here to talk to you about Alakazam Unlimited. This is the best streaming platform in the world, I'm telling you now. With Alakazam Unlimited, you get access to over 150 magic routines. This is video performances and explanations. We have card magic, coin magic, kids magic, rope magic, mentalism, stage, parlor, impromptu. We've got you covered. All of this for the low price of just £4.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Perfect if you've got commitment issues. Yes, I'm talking to you. Guys, you are going to absolutely love it. If you haven't joined the platform already, what the heck are you doing? Alakazam Unlimited is a streaming platform that you need to be a part of. Not only that, there is also exclusive content only available on the platform. Check it out now, alakazam.co.uk. Cheers.
in order to get that card into the impossible location, you need a utility device. And you need a utility device which is available through Alakazam. And genuinely, when I saw this years and years ago, I loved it. You've re-released it maybe 2 or 3 times, calling it different things. I think it's currently out as the E2, and it's the Extractor, and it's great because it's bomb-proof. It's bomb-proof. You know when you're doing a gig and you get an amateur magician or somebody who's played about with magic, and if there's certain parts of your act that you're thinking he's got an insight into, unless he's a qualified magician that's seen Extractor, then you know that's going to hit him around the head, because there's just such a great offbeat when you steal the card away. And it's just a great utility device which enables a spectator to return the card to the deck, and cleanly and fairly you put the deck away, and that playing card can ultimately appear inside a John Allen destination box.
Great. So is that how you use it then? So you would use it to...
No, I use it for anything. That's what's so good. I mean, obviously you can get... I don't want to go into the method of it, obviously, but you go, there's a way you can also obtain the information of what card is chosen. And that's a great sort of infill for time while you then work out how to get the playing card into your impossible location. So you can be deducing the card they've chosen while you're going through in my case, sometimes I'd put it into really complicated places. I used to do this, and I still do actually. I did it not too long ago. Is card to tin of sweet corn. So you introduce a tin of sweet corn at the start of the act. You say, I've got it in a little bag down here, and then we've got this tin of sweet corn. We might return to that later. You do the extractor, and then you hand out the tin of sweet corn. They crack open the tin of sweet corn, tip it out onto the thing, and inside of the tin of sweet corn, buried inside the center, is their card, which they freely return to the deck themselves. And it's literally, when you've got a spectator who's burning you or isn't really into it, it's, F you. Sort that one out.
Yeah, 100%. It's such a cool trick, and it's one that I saw it years ago and thought it was phenomenal. And even when you see what's going on in terms of making it, I don't understand how it can be made. Even still, once you see it, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense how a card that is pushed into a deck of cards freely and randomly into the middle is then delivered, so to speak, to where it's delivered to. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, and it's such a good weapon in your arsenal. Sorry, it made me sound like it was an intellectual challenge between the magician and the audience, which it never is. But when you do get those moments where you really need a trick that is going to be bomb-proof and angle-proof, really, and it's a great trick as well. It's not like you're resorting to some, mathematical trick which categorically will fool an audience but isn't great. You're relying, for me, as I said, a card to impossible location is like such a great baffling trick that people will remember when they go to bed or remember in weeks' time if you present it right. I'm grateful for the Extractor.
I think it's a great choice. It's phenomenal. And from being at conventions and watching Pete, who is, I've not seen anyone quite do it as good as him because of the amount of years he's been doing it. But watching magicians' faces, it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Watching these people who are so well educated and know their stuff.
Yes.
Be absolutely
if they
fried.
haven't seen it, they're screwed, aren't they? They do not know how that works.
Yeah, there's no way. So yeah, great choice. And I like that it ties into your third item as well. I really like that. I like that you've used the extractor potentially to allow you to facilitate the loading into the destination. So I'm going to presume you're going to go big now. Right, so I'm guessing we're going to
let's go big. Let's get back to the stage illusion but I don't know how many people know stage illusions really. I mean, obviously Rich and I involve ourselves in the world of stage illusions, but what you tend to find is there isn't a massive overlap. There's lots of magicians who are close-uppers or even cabaret acts that really don't know much about the world of stage illusion because they either don't have an interest in it or they've never just come across it. But I'm going to go with something called the $1 Million Mystery, also known as the Mirror Tunnel. And it's a box which sits in the center of a stage, right? Quite a big box, like 2 feet by 2 feet, maybe a bit wider. And there's variations on it, but in it, you can just relentlessly produce all sorts of different objects out of it. It can be, animals, it can be people, and it's just an onslaught of thing coming out of this box, which doesn't have like big thick base or big load area, and it's just like, how the hell is that happening? And the thing is, knowing and having seen one, and I've never worked with one, is that they are very difficult to perform. Like, angles are bad on it. Touring is difficult with illusions anyway. But when you've got audience widths which vary, rakes which vary, balconies which are looking down the wrong angles, it really isn't a tourable trick. But if you can get one that's in a set theatre where they can control those parameters, it's an absolutely baffling miracle. I think I saw Lance Burton do it in the Monte Carlo many years ago. Hans Klock did it in his show that he did in London, the Houdini Experience. And I remember it was incredible. So he produces all these girls from this box, which, by the way, rotates round. And then he wanders, and then one of the girls brings this big streamer out, this big white streamer. He gathers up the streamer and walks into the wing with the streamer, right, stage right, into the streamer. And then the streamer continues to be taught. And then he comes out of the box, having gone into the wing. And you go, what is going on there? What? How am I not seeing that? Where did he sneak into? Oh my God, it's brilliant, but very difficult to do. The best thing, if you're interested in that or you like the idea of it, Mike Caveney did something about it in the Magic Castle where he talked about the history of it and he demonstrated producing loads of balls and all sorts of blocks and stuff out of it. And it's just like this. It's just this magic cabinet where you just anything can come out of.
Great. I love the story that you just said of the streamer. That would be an absolutely mind-blowing moment, I think.
It is. It's just like, what? Did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it when that happens.
That's great. Well, let's touch on that very briefly, not to divert too much. If people don't know a lot about stage illusions, so for example, I don't know a huge amount. I have very mediocre knowledge of it. Where do people get started? If someone's listening now and they're loving your list, they love the idea of osmosis and the $1 Million Mystery, where do they start?
You know what? The 80s illusionists had it right. Like the 90s illusionists, like your Copperfields, your Siegfried and Roy, Lance Burton, that ilk had a whole wave of like illusions built by Bill Smith and John Gordon, all of those sort of infamous names in magic who are getting a bit older now, is that that was the golden era for that sort of illusions. And because they were performed by the greats, they soon became sort of off the shelf items, and you can still buy them and go to builders and have them made. So the information is out there. It's not that privileged to get hold, but you do need money. You need a bit of money. I mean, Young and I were very lucky because we used the close-up magic income we had. We're not wealthy, Young and I, but we used the close-up magic that we earned. Sorry, the money from close-up magic, and we both ended up buying stage illusions irrationally. So, like I bought a Decolted Chair Vanish. Young bought an Industrial Fan and an Origami. Prior to ever having a theatre gig, just because we liked the idea of the illusion. Do you know what I mean? And then what happened is once you've got the illusions, you're forced to do something with them, or you want to do something with them, which is probably the wrong way of doing it. But they are expensive, but you do get this, I don't know, you feel like you're a proper magician if you've got illusions. I do, and I do. It depends what you aspire to when you're young, but when you see a magician on a stage doing something which does involve mirrors and stuff, you go, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. That's exactly what you'd imagine to be a theatrical Victorian magician to be doing. It's a bit like it's not a sinister, it's a bit like the Prestige. You know what I mean? There's a slight intrigue behind the theatrical methods.
Yeah, it's great. It's one that hopefully more people will go and start exploring.
Wait, can I just say one thing about stage illusions? Is that, and it's an obvious thing. It's actually not an obvious thing. When you're first getting into it, obviously you get a grace period. But if you can try and do the right thing and buy the official props made by the official builders, like there is inevitably loads of rip-offs from people building their own versions of the trick, or they've managed to get hold of the schematics for the prop and think, they'll play about with it and build their own versions. And you go, please give the creator like a kickback or contact him and ask his permission to do it. Pay the rights. You have to pay illusion rights to the right people. There are certain illusions where there's the rights that don't really exist or have lapsed. Something like a fire cage, really, you don't need to go and pay the rights for that. But if you're going to do a fire spiker, you need to pay Mark Kalin the rights to do that. If you're going to do a squeeze box, you need to pay Andre Cole the rights to do that. It's just the right thing to do. They're the creators. They're the originators. They ploughed the time and effort, the relentless research and development going into that. And then someone just rips it off. And the rip-offs are always naff. The base sizes are not at all deceptive, and the prop just looks bad. And all those subtleties and details are lost. So if you can, try and do the right thing.
Yeah, great. And that leads us to your 6th item. So what did you put in your 6th spot?
Cynic soy box, or the box, the chest of Nostradamus. Do you know that? So the hanging box, you normally see it at a dealer's stand, or sorry, at like a magic convention, and it's a box hanging, and it's a little chest, and it's essentially an any card at any number. But the conceit is inside of this hanging chest is a deck of cards. And there's also a little brown envelope inside of the chest. And inside the brown envelope is a single playing card. You're going to name a number, and whatever card, you're going to count down yourself, and whatever card you get to in the deck of cards inside of the box is going to match the one inside the envelope. So it's not quite as clean as some other any card at any numbers, but ultimately you're going to say a number 45. And you're going to do this all yourself. You're going to count down 45 cards, and the 45th card is going to be the same one that's in the envelope inside the box. Critically, there's no repeated order. It's a deck of cards. Every single card is different. If you just stopped one card earlier, one card later, it would have been a different outcome. And it's incredible because it's a simplistic effect. And again, a real magician fool. If you've not seen it before, you don't know the mechanics. And just a beautiful, simple trick.
Great. Funny enough, we were talking on Darren Brown's episode, he chose an any card at any number. And one of the things that we spoke about was whether any card at any number would play well on stage. So it's lovely that you've now sort of contrasted that by having a stage version, and the idea of having it in the box above the stage really elevates what is essentially a small personal effect to something much, much bigger.
So I need to clarify what I said there, is that we don't actually perform it in our stage version. I perform the original Sin in Soy Box. I mean, occasionally at gigs, but mainly just to friends and family. It's an interesting artifact to have hanging from your mantelpiece or whatever, and then for somebody to go, what's the box for? And then you can go into it. But the other reason I really like it is that there's a barrier to entry with the trick. One of the things that is, I'm sure every magician can relate to this, when you get a really good trick, like one that's like, oh my God, that's brilliant, it's a sadness that it then spreads like wildfire and everyone's got it. Leviosa being a good example. When that first came out, it was like, wow, this is amazing. And now everybody in the magic community knows about it. A lot of people do it in their commercial close-up acts, and it's kind of lost its niche charm. Whereas Sid's Soy Box, or the Chest of Nostradamus, is a difficult trick to do. There's a mathematical equation that needs to happen that takes time, effort, and energy to learn and remember. And most people will buy and go, that's an incredibly clever trick. That's brilliant. They'll maybe learn the pattern or the system once, and they'll forget about it. And it'll just sit gathering dust. But because of that, not everybody does it. And it becomes this thing that not everybody does. And I love that.
Great, excellent choice. And that leads us to the tail end of your 8 tricks. So what did you put in number 7?
Going under watch. I hate to admit it because I think Young's coming across well, but actually Young does a better version than I do. But I love it. I mean, is that an object to impossible location? I bet it is. You vanish the coin and it's appeared under the watch. Didn't even know it was. But it's just, there's an element of skill, an element of dipping your toe into the pickpocketing world. And that spectator knows that that's not a gimmicky trick that you've bought, or that there is an element of skill. How could you have possibly got that coin under my watch? You must be a masterful sleight of hand artist. I'm not a masterful sleight of hand artist. Basically, what I do is I just bombard the spectator with sensory overload, completely invading their personal space. And by the time they've sort of come around from that experience, they don't know that there's a coin under their watch. Young has a bit more subtlety when he does it. But it's a great feeling. It's selfishly, when that coin's gone under the watch properly and it's locked in position, you're like, this is excellent. The arrogance that you can then have knowing it's in position and it's there and you've done the dirty work is really satisfying.
So, since that is another object to impossible location, does that mean that we give Mr. Young an extra point there?
No, it doesn't. But mind you, I've lost the game anyway. So whatever.
Yeah, excellent. So, have you ever done it with playing cards underneath the
No,
watch?
but I admire the people who do, and I need to sort of look into the mechanics of that. Have you done it with playing cards?
I have indeed. Yeah.
I mean, that's better. That's better, right?
It depends what effect you're going for. I think what's lovely about a coin is it feels spur of the moment, and that can almost be jazzed. So if you're at an event, like you mentioned earlier on, you said like if you got friends and stuff over, if you got nothing on you, it requires a coin, and you can do a cool effect where it's on the back of the hand or on the shoulder, and then underneath the watch. Whereas a deck of cards feels a bit more considered. There's a bit more involved. But yeah, I don't know. It depends on your vibe, isn't it, and what you want to achieve.
It's the same with watch stealing. I did try card under the watch many years ago, about 3 times, and I got caught on it, and it scared the shit out of me. And it's the same with watch stealing. I just couldn't. Once I got caught, so I went through a little period of doing a few actually, and then once I got caught, I just I didn't have the balls really to keep returning, and that failure is all part of the learning process. You have to accept you're going to get caught a lot of times in order to get good at it. But whenever I see a magician do card under watch, I think that's a good magician.
Yeah, I think there's some really good card under watch routines out there. Which coin under watch, like where did you learn it from?
Well, actually, I credit a chap called Rob James, who's a Bristol magician who many people will know of from all sorts of different things he's done. But he kindly sort of gifted me his handling on it, and he does a lot of pickpocketing actually. So he does do tie steals and watch steals and all sorts of stuff. So he's really a magician pickpocket, and he talked to me about this. And then actually, just in the simple coin routine that I do, there's so many base fundamentals with pickpocketing. You know, invading their space a little bit to begin with, so that it's not an alien concept when you come near them. Touching their wrists, so that it's not an alien concept when you touch it. The classic misdirection that you need both verbally and visually in order to get away with it. The things that the spectator might say to sort of screw you over at the end. I mean, one of the things that would sometimes happen is that you do it, and you've done it enough to know that the person hasn't felt it, and they don't know it. They don't know that the card or the coin is there. And then at the end, they'll say, yeah, but I knew all along. So putting in a line just to go, did you see when it happened? Did you feel when it happened? And they both concede that no. So now they can't row back on what they've said and be the all-knowing oracle of how the trick works. So all of those little subtle tips and tricks that I picked up from him really help.
Great. And just to throw it in there, if anyone is a member of Alakazam Unlimited, which is our streaming platform, there is a version of that on there by a guy called Matthew J. Dowden. And I
love Matthew J. Dowden. Has he got a version on there?
He has a version on there as well.
He's a good friend of mine. He's great. He lives in Vancouver. He's an actor, really. But oh god, yeah, he's an incredible magician.
Yeah, he's had a real resurgence on there. Lots of people have really enjoyed his material. In fact, we're putting one up next week called Shrinkage, which is also a very, very nice card move where a card visually shrinks as it flies onto someone's hand. It's really, really good. But yeah, so if you want to learn Coin Under Watch, there is a version on there as well. So do go check that out. But it does lead us on to your last one. Now, you haven't given us any honourable mentions. So if you do have honourable mentions, feel free to put them in now or after your 8th one, or you can just go for number 8.
I'm going to go for number 8 now. Number 8, we just came back from Magic Live. Have you ever been to Magic Live? Actually, Pete and Harry were there, actually. They had their stand. Great seeing them there. And it's my first ever Magic Live and Young's first ever Magic Live. And we were doing a thing as part of the convention. But wandering around the dealers was just such a pleasurable experience because I like the chaos of Blackpool and the madness and the fact there's 4,500 magicians. But the dealers' room was an air-conditioned room with plenty of space to stand around the stands and chat. If you bump, that inevitable thing that you bump into people on the way around and then you end up chatting to them for 10 minutes before moving on. And it's pleasurable when you're in that conversation. But if you're wandering around trying to watch dealers demonstrate, it's frustrating. All these loitering people are in the way. But In Magic Live, it was just a really nice convention room, which was spacious, light, and airy. So you got plenty of opportunities to go around and really absorb what the dealers were selling. And there was this great dealer. Who was it's called Plain Sight was the name of his business, and I'm not sure if you know it. It's he's called Jeff Price, but the trick is called the random card generator. Maybe it's a new thing. I reckon it probably is a new thing actually because I'd never seen it before. Rich had never seen it before, and it just blew my mind. And I've had such pleasure performing it. It's just great. So what it is you've got this card, right? Which has got every denomination of playing card on. So 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King. And then separately, it's got diamonds, clubs, hearts, and spades. And what you do is and they're perforated as dividers between each of those denominations. And you use completely hands-off card force, right? So you hand that card and you get them to examine the card. And you say, what you're going to do as a spectator is you're going to rip all those things up, dump them in a cup, shake it up and down, and then you're going to tip out all of the values, and then any one that's face down, shift to one side. And you do this whole process, and you end up with a card. It can be the 6 of hearts or whatever. Well, they're the 2 face-up ones are, and then it's a card force. So you can reveal the thing, but it's so fair. And the card that you're given at the start is completely examinable. So you go. It fooled us big time. And what's interesting is having bought the trick is I actually Young and I perform a variation on that method, and it still fooled us because the card's examinable at the start. So I'm genuinely loving performing that. I take it everywhere. I don't normally perform magic when I'm out and about. I just kind of find it a bit, I just kind of most of the time just have a bit of a distance from it. But that is something I'm taking everywhere with me and loving performing.
That sounds really interesting. It sounds really cool. The fact that it can be, I mean, I was with you until a certain point, I think. But then as soon as you mention the card being examinable, that blows your brain, really.
It is. I mean, I know this is an audio podcast, but I'm holding it up to you so you can see on Zoom. But each individual domination, front and back, the back is all of the card is all one color, red, and then you tear all these individual things up, and you empty them out until there's the only two that are face up, and then that's a card force, and it's just. What's so great about it is it's incredibly easy to do, and you can just have complete confidence just to sit back and let that process unfold. I haven't worked out yet how to make that process entertaining because there is a bit of process, but we thought it might be good for one of the things when we're in this touring show called Champions of Magic, right? And one of the things you do is you go to different towns and you do the show, but as part of the track of the performers is that you normally turn up to a morning TV studio to do Fox News 9, and they say, oh, we've got magicians in the studio who are doing a show later tonight in the Kennedy Center or whatever, and then in order to get that gig of appearing on the local news, we offer that we're going to come in and do a trick for you, because they don't really want you just to come in and talk about the show and publicize your promo reel. They want a hook. So by coming in and doing a trick for the presenters. So that's the sort of trick that's perfect, because there's a little bit of process, which over time will make entertaining, but and then it allows us a vehicle to talk about the show, and the tickets are still available for later tonight or whatever. So that's what I'm thinking that's for.
Excellent. I think that's going to be one that I certainly look into. I think that sounds excellent. And I love on this podcast, one thing that I enjoy as well is discovering new pieces of magic that I feel like would fit me as well, and that just sounds perfect. It sounds great.
I was reluctant to mention it in the same way that I talked about the Sin and Soy box or the chest for Nostradamus, because what you do, because it's so good, and I'm sure we could eventually make it really entertaining. I don't want anyone else to know about it. I want to buy the exclusive rights for it, so that when I turn up and wheel that trick out, people don't go, oh yeah, I know that, and that's that trick by Jeff, isn't it? Yeah, Jeff Price. Yeah.
Well, that's what you said earlier on when you mentioned tricks like Leviosa. When it first came out, it was incredible, but then everyone was doing it. So now everyone's going to be doing that one. So thank you. Thank you for that. That's great.
So his name's Jeff Price, I should say, not Price. Price.
Perfect. So that brings us on to your 2 curveball items. So your book and your non-magic item. Now, do you want to have a guess at Richard Young's book?
Richard Young's book. No.
He wants to cover in that hole. He
Is it
doesn't
the
want to
Andrew
make
Main
anything
book? The Andrew Main book? No. No. No, because basically, if I know, no, just telling me what it is, put me out of my misery.
Well, no, just in case you've gone for the same book, because there could be an overlap.
Oh no, he
there.
won't have gone for the book that I've got because the book I've gone with. Shall I tell you?
Yeah, go for it.
Is actually again, there's a huge amount of nostalgia wrapped up into it, and I think probably to magicians, it's probably not that interesting. But it was the first ever magic book I got, and it was aptly named Magic Tricks is the name of the book, and it's by a British magician called Keith Fields, who lives now in Detroit. And it was a beautifully laid out visual magic book with loads of pictures, loads of really good magic, and it fostered my passion for magic brilliantly in my teenage years, because there's loads of great tricks in there that you could perform to your friends and family, and it really brilliantly explained. So that's my book, Magic Tricks by Keith Fields. But as I say, magically, it's probably not that interesting, but it's certainly it's the book. Even now, I read and I get excited again for magic because it's tapping into that childhood feeling.
Now, you're not going to believe this.
It's not Magic Tricks by Keith Fields. He's not chosen the same book. No,
The book that Richard Young went for
no, it's
was
not.
Magic Tricks by Keith Fields.
No, he hasn't.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't at all. He didn't. So his book was Notes from a Fellow Traveller.
Oh, yes. Very good. Yeah.
Now, I noticed that your one had something written in the front there as well.
Oh, yeah, because I'm not sure if you know the name Keith Fields. I mean, he used to do a lot of the circuit at the same time, like John Lenihan and stuff in the UK, and was a comedy act, really. He would do stand-up magic, the sort of the Ian Keeble sort of generation. And there was he then moved to Detroit, but about 4 or 5 months ago, he came to a show, I think, in Detroit we were doing, and I just couldn't believe it that this guy who I'd spent all these years looking at and got me into magic was there. So I ended up meeting him at the Magic Circle. I got him to sign the book. So.
Oh wow! I bet that was an amazing process. That would have been great being able to talk to him.
Yeah, he was actually. Yeah, it was really good, and I had loads of questions about the book and the material and how the book came about and stuff. So, yeah.
Was there a standout trick from the book that?
Yeah, the vanishing coat hanger. So do you know it? Oh, it's brilliant. So you take a coat hanger, and it vanishes. No, you take a coat hanger and you wrap it in. You wrap it in newspaper. And then what happens is you fold it around the shape of the coat hanger, and you just you bunch the coat hanger. Sorry, you bunch the paper up, and you just throw it away, and it's like it's vanished.
Wow,
it's a really clever method.
Great.
I've sort of exposed in the explanation there, but there you go.
Great. Well, again, that's another one. Hopefully, if people can track down a copy, then they can grab it either out of their existing.
It's good if you've got like a kid who's starting out, or there's loads of stuff in there. There's like vanishing coin stuff. There's the magic square, how that works, and a whole section of card and rope magic, but it's just brilliantly laid out. So yeah, I'd recommend that.
Excellent. And that brings us to your curveball item. So you're only allowed one thing. So it's a non-magic item thing that you use for magic.
Some people would say that children aren't objects, right? But I have 2 children, 6 and 3. 5 and 3 is how old they are. And I very much view them as objects. So I would definitely I love my kids a lot. So I would definitely take I know you only get one item though. That's the arrangement, right? So
do I have to make you pick a favourite? Is that where we're going with this?
I mean, Georgie, the youngest, by a clear. I mean, the other one's a nightmare. So yeah, I'm taking the young one. No, because also taking a child with you would be good. It would be good because you being away, which happens a lot when we're on tour. Actually, you get some value of them being around. But then also, all these tricks I've listed are meaningless unless you've got an audience to perform it to. So, my 3-year-old would love an extractor that appears inside a destination box, I'm sure.
Have your kids shown an interest in magic?
Yeah, a little bit actually. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of interesting. Are they not? They're still at the age they don't quite understand what work is or why you'd go out and work and what Daddy does for a living. And they know I'm a magician, but they've never seen come to a theatre and seen me do a show. They've seen a few little online things. I've done magic to them. That's kind of an interesting process. Trying to gauge their cognitive ability at different ages and whether they understand the value of a playing card that's lost in amongst a load of other indifferent playing cards, and where that understanding of like general science and physics kicks in in order to subvert that as a magician. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, they're getting to a good age now where I can do magic to them and they do like it.
So, is it something that in the future you could almost do a father and kid act?
Well, Young and I have talked about it, right? So we sell merchandise after our show. When we do it, we have a show called Delusionists in America, and we also sell merchandise to Champions of Magic. So what we're going to do is we're going to give Emmy, my eldest daughter, who's going to be 6 soon, some merchandise to wander around the lobby just saying, this is the greatest, most comfortable t-shirt I've ever worn. Or look at this magic trick. This is great value. I cannot believe it's only $100 from the merchandise stand. So we'd employ her in that way, I think, in a more cynical child exploitation fashion.
Great. Well, that's the funny thing. Lots of people have taken photos of loved ones. And I have reminded people that they could have taken an actual person. So
idiots. They didn't think like that, did they?
It's great. It's a really, really good choice. Now, anything that didn't make the list?
Well, yeah. Again, it was going back to I was gonna put in card to sealed envelope, right? But I thought that's just too close to destination box. But yeah, I mean, any of the tricks. I used to love Amazing Jonathan's Knife Through Arm. Do you ever remember that series on TV? It was the 50 greatest magic tricks of all time, and that really, when I watched that again, I was into the thralls of magic and enjoying it. But there was plenty of tricks on that series where I just went, oh, that's good. One Tamara is sort of relentless repetition of the card thing. That's number 50, and then, yeah, Amazing Jonathan's Knife Through Arm, which is now sold as a commercial product. I mean, I bought a Carnival Knife Through Arm many years ago, but then this obviously the new release of the actual Amazing Jonathan's Knife Through Arm, so they claim. I've got that, so I really thought about putting that in the list.
Great, excellent choice, and a really lovely, diverse amount of tricks as well. We've got some stage tricks there. We've got some close-up pieces. You've connected a couple of different tricks as well. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Now, the question is, do you want to hear Young's list?
Yeah. I'd love to. Absolutely love to.
At number 1, he went for the Portal Vanish by David Copperfield.
I mean, that surprises me, but yeah, fine. Whatever. Portal, fine. Next.
Number 2, I haven't got the name of the trick, but it was a trick from Michael Vincent's Rhapsodies or Elegant Deceptions DVD.
I mean, yeah, that's just such smart academic thinking, isn't it? That's what he's gone for there. He's gone, how do I position myself as this really well-read magician? I know if I mention Michael Vincent's DVD, then I get some sort of credibility there.
Number 3, Leviosa.
Yeah.
Number 4 was the other stage illusion, and it was Teller's Miser's Dream.
Oh, what? No. Wow. Incredible.
Which is a great choice. It's such a wonderful trick. Number 5 was Coin 1 by Homer Leewag.
Oh, I could have got that. He loves that.
He spoke about doing it in one of the shows at a quiet moment where he's in the audience.
I do enjoy watching that moment because there's an element of jeopardy as well. I'm really just praying that he drops one of the coins. That's my internal monologue when that's going on.
6 was Bottle Through Table.
Oh yeah, good one. I mean, you can't argue that in terms of the reaction he gets from the audience. That's a difficult one to argue against.
It's a superb trick. Again, it's one that we've had quite a few times on the pod. And no doubt we'll have more people say it. Number 7 was his version of the bill change, but to multiple denominations.
Yeah, that is very good. Actually, we also use that in Champions of Magic. It's really, I'm sure he went into detail about it, but it's a killer trick.
Yeah, he spoke about how he's managed to routine it so that he always gets a hit. Basically, he talks about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So it sounds really, really good.
As good as it is, it's turning into a cashless society, isn't it? So he needs to rethink that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And number 8, Flying Rig.
Well,
Book was Notes from a Fellow Traveller. And his item was a photo of Sam Strange.
No, wasn't he? What? So he can chuck darts at it? What? Or like rip it up to act as firewood or something? What? There's no way. What's the punchline? Come on, hit me with it.
I will let you discover that.
There's no way he's taking a photo of me onto a desert island. It's obviously some punchline to that. So I'll have to find out what the meaning behind that is.
But absolutely wonderful list. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Now, you've alluded to doing different shows, so if people want to find out more about you or see some of these shows, where can they go?
youngandstrange.co.uk. But we've been heavily involved in a long-running magic show, which started off in the UK called Champions of Magic, transitioned to the North America in 2017, and is going through a interesting few months and years ahead of us, because the show's evolving and changing with all sorts of extra things being added. So if you do get the chance to see that show, I don't think you'll leave disappointed.
Absolutely. So please do go check that out, and make sure you do go to YouTube and see these guys. I love seeing your performances. I love how you always put some sort of quirky twist into your performances as well. There's always some extra element that you both do to make it interesting or funny or just different to what everyone else is doing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, Sam.
I've loved it.
Do go listen back to Young's episode and let us know what you think down the line.
I will do. Thanks very much, mate.
And thank you all for listening now. Don't forget, we do have a mid-week episode now. So we do have Stranded with a Stranger, and that's your chance to send in your list. So if you want us to read out your list on one of the Monday episodes, then please send in your list of 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 non-magic item that you use for magic to sales at alakazam.co.uk. Please use the subject line My Desert Island List. That way it comes through to me. I can then go through them, find your one, and we can read it out on a future episode. Please do also give us a little synopsis about who you are so that we can gauge what sort of performer you are, and of course let us know what the tricks are and why you've chosen them. So with that being said, thank you so much. We will be back again Monday with a Stranded with a Stranger, and we will be back on next Friday for our main Desert Island Tricks episode. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again on another episode of Desert Island Tricks. Goodbye.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.